Today's video is brought to you by Bethesda. Thank you to the team for providing us with an early copy of Starfield. Starfield is a massive game, and even as an RPG veteran, it can be overwhelming, sometimes downright confusing. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and today we're reaching for the stars and sharing our ultimate beginner's guide to Bethesda's epic space adventure, Starfield. To level set right out of the gate, this video is going to touch on everything a new player might need to know about the game. We're not going to dive into specific tips and tricks about nuanced systems, that's content for another video, but Starfield is so big that we felt it necessary to really break down some of the core systems so you understand how they work and how you can master them. This video will contain absolutely no story spoilers, so sit back and soak it all in. From the very beginning, you'll be making key decisions that will influence your gameplay. This all happens during character customization, and after close to 100 hours with the game, I think it's important you understand the weight of these decisions. Let's start with your background. You get to choose from 21 predetermined classes, for lack of a better term. With that comes some backstory, and this is important as it will play a role in your dialogue options in certain scenarios. In my case, I chose the file not found backstory, hoping it would tie to some extravagant secret down the line. I haven't personally run into any scenarios where that background has influenced any conversations, but as you see, other backgrounds clearly do, opening up new options for the player. Each background also comes with 3 starting skills, and I want to clarify what this actually means. Once you choose a background, you receive a point in those 3 starting skills, which means you get the rank 1 benefits that go alongside having those skills. In the grand scheme of things, this means very little, as you can level up and unlock dozens of skills, but at the start of the game, when things are arguably the hardest, the decision holds a little more merit. Regardless of what you choose here, you can still access any skill you want later on, so don't let anyone tell you your decision locks you into those skills. Taking this a step further, we have traits, and those are a little more flexible based on how you want to approach the game. The base game features 17 traits, and you can choose anywhere from 0 traits all the way up to 3 traits. What's more interesting, you're given opportunities throughout the game to remove these traits during key moments. For example, I chose kid stuff, which means I have a mom and a dad in the game that do various things, but that also means I have to pay them 500 credits each week as a sort of reverse allowance. At some point, I was given the option to tell my parents, you know what, enough is enough. So what I'm getting at is this: your traits will open new opportunities for you, but not all of these are permanent. That being said, these have a much more direct impact on opportunities within the game. Another example here, my parents came to visit Constellation at one point and presented me with a special weapon. That stuff never would have happened without the kid stuff trait, so think carefully before making your decisions here. One thing I spent a lot of time fumbling around with was how to actually navigate Starfield. It's a massive game, and understanding this key aspect will make moving around the galaxy much smoother. Luckily, the Bethesda team was really smart about how they went about this and gave players loads of options, which actually is part of the reason why it's so tricky when you're first getting started. So to be frank here, there are a ton of load screens, and you can't really avoid that. If you install the game on an SSD or M2, however, you can move through these lightning quick, but this really only impacts the immersion of the game if you choose to fast travel everywhere, and the team gives you a lot of options to do that. First, you can fast travel from almost anywhere in the universe via your star map, which you can access at any time. From here, you can jump around to systems you've already visited, as well as the planets you've already landed on. For example, I could be standing on Mars, even exploring a specific point of interest, and still access my star map. From there, I could pull up something like the Alpha Centauri system, locate the planet Jemison, where I'll find New Atlantis, and since I've already been to that planet and location, I can quickly fast travel to my destination. The only catch-22 here is if you need to fast travel to a planet outside of the range of your grav drive. If that's the case, you'll need to head back to your ship and hopscotch your way to your destination. Fast traveling also works as it pertains to quests. From the quest menu, you'll notice the option to plot course, and this is a dummy-proof way to ensure you head in the right direction of your objective. It certainly removes a layer of immersion, but it's quick, which some people will absolutely want. Now, on the flip side, you can take the more immersive route if that's something you want. You can choose to walk or fast travel back to your ship, climb in the cockpit, and then choose the liftoff option. This will spark a neat cutscene, and after a brief load screen, you'll be in space. Without entering a menu, you can then navigate to a new destination so long as you have the mission or activity tracked. By pressing X on a controller or E on a keyboard, you can bring up a tracker and then can set course, sending your ship off into space and your destination. You can do the same thing when you get to your new destination as well, tracking the planet or place you want to land and then setting course for that destination. It's a great way to feel like you're more in control of your journey, and while not as fast as simply fast traveling from point A to point B, it's certainly more immersive. Sadly, there is no way to avoid load screens, which definitely would have catapulted things to that next level, but given the size and scope of the game, it's kinda to be expected. Today's video is made possible by none other than Bethesda, creators of Starfield. When the team reached out to sponsor a couple guide videos, how could we resist? Starfield has been on our most anticipated games list since it was first announced, so to finally go hands-on with the game really has been huge. If you don't know, Starfield is available beginning September 1st on Xbox and PC for those who have purchased the Starfield Premium Edition, and will be available for everyone else on September 6th. If you're still on the fence about picking up the game, what are you waiting for? There's a massive galaxy to explore, and it's unlike anything you've ever seen. Thank you once again to Bethesda for sponsoring this video. One thing that will absolutely dog you throughout much of your game is a lack of inventory space. Bethesda games have always been notorious for throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you and asking you to shove it all in your pockets. Well, think about that problem on a galactic scale, and yeah, it's kind of a mess. First, we need to talk about the game's quick slotting system, because without it, you're in for a rough experience. While in your inventory, you can favorite certain items, namely weapons, explosives, and aid to a quick slot. You get to choose which slot to assign the item to, which also determines how you access it with a corresponding key or button press. While exploring, simply press Q on the keyboard or up on the D-pad to access the full quick slotting menu. Now, to really understand inventory management, let's look at the various layers and options you have for storing gear. Your character can hold a certain amount of gear depending on your weight limit. This is enhanced with gear, skills, and various aid items, but by no means will you be able to hold everything on your person. Use your surveying skill to highlight items in the environment that you can interact with, and be thoughtful, only picking up items that are of value or serve a direct or future purpose. If you do exceed your maximum weight limit, you begin to expend oxygen simply by moving, regardless if you're walking, running, jumping, whatever. Once your O2 is gone, the CO2 meter fills up, and once that maxes out, you're in for a rough time. It doesn't kill you, but it does make things a little more difficult. Your ship is a great secondary place to store gear, and there are a ton of options here. Each ship has a cargo hold, and its available size is dictated on how many cargo bays you have built into your ship. The more you have, the more you can store, but there are some drawbacks to creating a freighter, mainly speed, maneuverability, and overall mass. Your ship also features a small captain's locker, which allows you to store a choice amount of essentials. Think of this as a great place to store a few weapons, precious armor, things of that nature. Depending on the HABs you have installed on your ship, you'll also have other means to store gear. For example, my ship, the Razorleaf, awarded for completing a secret quest we'll discuss in a future video, has a built-in armory hab that allows me to store tons of weapons and gear without using up my cargo hold. Unlike your outpost, your ship cannot be customized from the inside out. All that customization happens in the shipbuilder mode from the outside in. Depending on what HABs you have installed on your ship will dictate how things look like on the inside, but that's something you don't necessarily experience early on in the game. In terms of gear, you can also rely on your companion to pick up the slack. You can offload anything from your inventory into their inventory, but be warned, you will need to manually retrieve it at some point. Whatever your companions are holding does not get pulled into any crafting stations, so they're good as small pack mules, nothing else. Then there's your outpost, which is honestly its own game within a game. You could spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours flying across the galaxy, farming resources, and working on your outpost without ever actually doing missions. It's a familiar system, built on a foundation from previous Bethesda games, but the level of depth and customization here is impressive. What we care about in this moment, however, is storage. And yes, your outposts or outposts can serve as a great way to store gear, stash weapons, and display armor. Like any good base, there's loads of flexibility, and there's a lot of ways you can interconnect various subsystems to make things seamless. For example, you can build a transfer container, which allows you to move items from your ship to its temporary storage. You can then link that transfer container to a variety of permanent storage solutions and warehouses that will automatically pull in specific materials that match certain parameters. Any crafting stations within your outpost can also pull from these permanent storage solutions. With enough time and effort, you can practically automate your base, and since your crafting tables and fabricators can utilize the resources stored, it's an awesome way to keep your resources and crafting chain interconnected. When all else fails, or you just need some credits, you can take whatever's weighing you down and sell it. For new players, know that there is a bright greenish-yellow kiosk right near your ship's landing area at each major city. This is a simple and effective way to sell goods, but you should know different vendors have different merchandise and buy and sell for different values, so get comfortable with the local vendors. We touched on companions briefly before, but I think it's worth talking about them even more. You'll meet a lot of interesting characters throughout your journey, and it's wise to always consider bringing them on as part of your crew. With a fleet of ships and a handful of outposts to manage, you're going to need some help. What I think everyone needs to know is that you can actually outfit your companions with gear, which makes them even more valuable while adventuring. To do this, simply talk to them and ask to trade gear. From your inventory, move over whatever items you want them to equip. Then flip back to their inventory and equip the items on your companion using the Y button on Xbox or B key on PC. You can do this with all the essentials: weapons, outfits, spacesuits, and helmets. I'm ashamed to admit it took me a while to figure this out, but that's what happens when you're so caught up in all the systems of an interconnected open world game. Remember too that companions each come with their own set of unique bonuses. You can quickly check your entire roster of companions by going to your ship menu. By pressing Y on a controller or C on PC, you'll enter an entirely new menu. Here you'll see each companion in your lineup and what skills and ranks of those skills they possess. What's most important about these skills is that they equate to the actual skill trees in the game. So, for example, Sarah Morgan has rank 4 of Astrodynamics. If we find that skill and then check out the rank 4 bonus, you'll see that we get 50% reduced fuel costs when grav jumping. What's critical to understand though is that these companion bonuses only take effect when they're properly assigned. In the case of Miss Morgan, she needs to be assigned as a member of your ship's crew to take advantage of that rank 4 perk. In a similar vein, a companion with an offensive skill such as Samco's rank 3 rifle certification is a boost for his skills, not yours. That means you need to pay full attention to what gear you're giving your companions to take full advantage of their skill set. As an added bonus, if you ever lose track of a specific companion, you can simply go back to that crew menu and assign them to your ship. The next time you climb aboard, they'll be there, magically returned from whatever desolate planet you left them on. As you might have suspected, companions also have unique storylines and sometimes quests associated with them. The more they travel with you, the more likely it is they'll open up and you can uncover some backstory and potentially cash in on that relationship. Rotating out your companion every now and again isn't a bad strategy because, as you've most likely figured out by now, there's a lot of galaxy out there and everyone's got a story. While you can buy houses across the settled systems, your spaceship is where you really call home. It becomes an integral part of your exploration experience, and it can be a bit overwhelming to try and navigate everything the game throws at you at once. Not to take the wind out of your sails, but shipbuilding is more of an end-game feature than an early-game feature, but you can still tinker with shipbuilding just without the full breadth of the game's many offerings. Your first ship, the Frontier, is an okay starting vessel, but you'll quickly outgrow its limited capabilities. The first thing you can do is upgrade the core systems. You can do this at any spaceport by talking to the ship service technician. Once inside the menu, you'll want to tap A on Xbox or E on PC to enter upgrade mode. Here you can quickly go through your core components. Anything tied to your ship's systems can be isolated and individually upgraded from this menu. It's a much easier way to view components, and early on, this is going to make a big difference. Oftentimes you'll be fighting multiple enemies in space, and if you don't keep up with your upgrades or get an entirely new ship, you'll quickly realize what the cold reaches of the unknown feel like. Before leaving any spaceport, you'll also want to scoop up any repair parts the vendors or kiosks have available. These are heavy, so store them in your cargo bay, but realize that when you're in a firefight, you can repair your ship, just like you would heal during combat. When your hull integrity is low enough, the option becomes available, and having a surplus of repair parts almost guarantees you'll stay in the fight a bit longer. Remember too that the right companions provide huge bonuses when assigned to your ship's crew, so really pay attention to who you have available and what bonuses they bring to the table. There is a surprising amount of ship combat in the game, tied to all manner of missions and activities, so don't skirt over this important aspect of the game. If you are feeling adventurous, you can dive into the game's shipbuilder mode, and let me warn you, this is not for the faint of heart. You'll always need to start with a base ship. You can't build from nothing. From here, you can navigate around and begin to move pieces of your ship around into new configurations, adding and removing elements as you see fit. This is an extremely costly endeavor early on, and you're limited by what you can actually outfit your ship with. Depending on what city spaceport you're visiting will determine what ship parts you have access to, and the stock changes drastically depending on if you're in one city or another, so don't waste tens of thousands of credits building a custom ship until you know it's out there. Some of these parts are even gated by skill progression. Within the tech tree, on the third tier is Starship Design. By allocating points into this skill, you'll unlock new ship parts at each ship service technician. Certain parts like reactors can also be gated by the piloting skill, so as I said before, it's going to take some time and investment to unlock the best ships and parts in the game, and it all comes at a premium. For those trying to build out your first custom ship, pay close attention to the warnings and guidance the game provides. If your ship is too heavy, it's going to be slow, and the game will try and warn you of that before you commit the changes. Some issues will just impact performance, while others are downright necessary to fix in order for you to complete a ship build. One thing that drove me nuts in the beginning were the weapons. In order to complete your ship's checklist, you need to assign each weapon to a group. To do this, simply enter the flight check menu by tapping C on a keyboard or Start on an Xbox controller. This will bring up a new screen with a message tab and weapons tab. Toggle over and assign all equipped weapons, and that error should go away. From the flight check menu, you can also rename your ship by tapping X on an Xbox controller or G on a keyboard. If Life Amongst the Stars is more appealing to you, I'd recommend spending a lot of time with the ship builder, getting acclimated to its quirks and nuances, and then really leaning into understanding how parts work together. One thing I'll call out is the different variations of parts, specifically HABs. With a part selected in ship builder mode, use the arrow keys on your keyboard or left and right on the D-pad to toggle between different variations that have unique functionality. HABs come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and since you can't manipulate the layout of your ship from the inside out, it's important to include HABs that fulfill your needs. If you want to stow extra armor and weapons, you'll want an armory HAB. If you want to be able to conduct research from your ship, you'll need a science HAB. The rub is each HAB adds weight to your ship, so unless you plan on making a massive flagship, honestly, sounds pretty cool, it'll become a balancing act. Not something you should be afraid of, just a heads up. Friends, you are no doubt going to have questions about this game, and we are here to help. If there's something you want to know about Starfield, leave us a comment down below. Our community does a great job of helping one another out, so if something is truly stumping you, let us know and we'll do our best to guide you through it. Of course, if you want direct access to the legacy gaming community, then consider joining us on Discord. With over 20,000 members and a special section dedicated just for Starfield, it's a great place to hang out, talk about new and upcoming games, and win loads of free prizes. That link, as always, is below. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.